friends, I'm Becca and today I'm doing the Halloween in July book tag. This book tag was created by the Book Gypsy, who is a bookstagrammer apparently, so I will leave their Instagram linked down below in the description. There are 7 questions all having to do with Halloween, and I'm definitely already getting in the Halloween spirit. I know I'm going to be posting this at the end of July and it's almost August, but I'm ready for fall for sure. So let's get started. Question number 1 is, what book gives you the creeps? I went with kind of an unconventional answer for this one, and I chose Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys, and this takes place in World War II, but it is about a girl in Lithuania who gets taken by the Soviet police to Siberia with her family. And I think that it just shook me to my core because I don't remember learning about this side of World War II when I was in school, and it made me really infuriated that I didn't know about this story. It definitely gave me the creeps while I was reading it because it was a time period that I felt like I had a really good grasp on, but a story that I'd never heard of, and that freaked me out for some reason. So yeah, Between Shades of Grey. Question number 2 is, what book gives you the best Halloween vibes? I decided to go with a book that I haven't read yet, and it is The Diviners by Libba Bray. I love this cover so much, and it's like an older one, so the pages are all yellowed, and I love that. I've only ever read the first chapter, and it just gives me such strong occult vibes that gets me in a Halloween mood, so I knew that I had to go with this one. Question number 3 is, what is your favorite vampire book? And I know when I'm watching this tag, I'm like, don't say Twilight, don't say Twilight, don't say Twilight. I ended up choosing one of my all-time favorite books that's going to be reoccurring in this tag, and it is A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. This is about a woman who is actually a descendant of the Salem witches, but she doesn't want anything to do with sorcery or witchcraft, and she's also a historian. So in this world, witches are historians, vampires usually work in the medical field, demons are very artsy, that sort of thing, and I just loved that world building for some reason. So basically the main character, Diana, is a historian, and one day when she's at the library, she accidentally unearths this magical manuscript that has the origin stories for witches, vampires, and demons in it, and pretty soon everyone is just kind of hunting her down to try to get their hands on this book, and the love interest ends up being a vampire and she doesn't trust him at all. Yeah, aside from Twilight, I would say that this is my favorite book that has vampires in it. It's also the only other book that I've read that has vampires in it, and I have often described this trilogy, even though I've only read the first one, as being a very adult version of Twilight, and I love it. Question number 4 is, what book scared you so much that you had to sleep with the light on? And I am not even exaggerating with this one. It is Don't Breathe a Word by Jennifer McMahon. This book still terrifies me. The only reason why I haven't unhauled it is because this is my go-to book for any question like this. It's about a girl who went missing in the woods behind her house, and 15 years later her cousin basically is trying to explain this phenomenon, I guess, that happened. And it's about fairies, but it's really freaking dark, and the last chapter left me with chills down my spine. I love and hate this book for that very reason. It freaked me out so much, and I read it a couple years ago, and to this day I cannot even think about it. I know I'm gonna be spooked and on edge for the rest of the day just because I'm talking and looking at this book. I don't know, it gives me the absolute creeps. I could have used this for the first question too, and it just shook me to my core, and I'm still not over it, and I know that this is the one I use for everything, and there's a reason for that, because if you want a book that's going to like freak you out to no end, this is the one to choose. It's like part horror, part mystery thriller, I don't know. If you're a fan of Gillian Flynn, I don't know how to say that author's name, then you would probably like this author too, except I feel like her books are way darker. Also, of course, one that spooked me so much, but also I ended up falling in love with is, of course, The Merciless by Danielle Vega. I love this whole series. This is one of my favorite series of all time. Obviously, I just got this new one. I got it like bound. The one thing I love about the books in the series is that they're all bound. There's no dust jacket. It's just like a hardcover book, and I love that. And this first one is like bumpy and feels like an old journal. If you don't know anything about the Merciless series, the first book follows a girl named Sophia who is a new girl at school. She's a military brat, so she's traveled around, and she befriends like this group of mean girls at her school who are targeting this other girl who's kind of gothy and out there named Brooklyn because they believe that she is possessed by the devil. So they devise a plan and end up kidnapping Brooklyn and trying to give her an exorcism in the basement of this abandoned house, and it's like goes off the freaking rails, and then each book just gets crazier from there. The fourth and last book just came out last month, and I don't want it to end, and I haven't read it yet, but this book is equal parts like spooky and campy and gory. Like, it's so good if you want a chilling YA thriller horror book. I definitely recommend this one. Question number 5 is, what is your favorite book about like witches, goblins, vampires, demons, anything like that? So obviously I'm gonna bring back my favorite, A Discovery of Witches, because it's just like so well done. But I also want to talk about The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. This one has a lot of occult themes as well, and I really enjoyed all of those like different aspects throughout this book. Question number 6 is, what book did you wish was scarier than it ended up being? And I have 2 for this one. The first one is Survive the Night by Danielle Vega. I thought that I would love this book because of how much I love The Merciless, but I definitely don't think that this was up to par with the Merciless series. And then she also writes under another name, Danielle Rollins, and I also don't think those books are up to par with the Merciless series. The Merciless is like the best works that I believe that she's put out, but basically this is about a girl who goes to a rave with a bunch of her friends in an underground like subway station, and they kind of get separated, and when they all get back together, like everyone is gone. And so they're stranded like underground in the subway or sewer system or something, and then people start dying, and there's this monster. You can definitely tell that she gets a lot of her inspiration from Stephen King, and I feel like this one is especially inspired by it. And because I already knew that story and I watched the movie growing up, and I thought that like the ending was super cheesy, and that's the vibe that I got from the ending of this book. I feel like that is kind of Danielle Vega's struggle with a lot of her books, is she has a really strong storyline, and then when she gets to the end, it ends up falling flat. And I feel like that happens in a lot of the Stephen King works that I have taken in as well. So yeah, I wish this one was a lot spookier than it ended up being. I also wanted to choose one that's a little bit more unconventional, so I went with Schizo by Nick Sheff. This is about a boy who suffers from schizophrenia, and he's tormented by the death of his little brother and by this other girl that he liked or something like that. And he is just like determined to find out what happened to his brother who was kidnapped, but he like stops taking his medication and everything. And I thought that this would be like a lot darker than it ended up being. I didn't end up loving this one at all, and I read a lot of books about mental health. I don't know, like I thought that there would be more hallucinations, more going on, and I guess technically there are. If you've read this book, you know what I mean, but I thought that it would be different, I guess, and I thought that it would be like darker and creepier than it actually was, so a little bit disappointing. And question number 7 is, what is your favorite book that takes place during October? I could choose any of the books that I talked about during this video. Not all of them take place during October, but they all give off like that kind of vibe. I also would probably throw in the Harry Potter. That's a really classic one that always just feels like a very autumn, October-y, Halloween type book. And specifically, I'm going to say The Merciless 2 by Danielle Vega, of course. I love just the whole atmosphere of this book, and I can't really give that much away because it is the sequel, but I just really enjoyed it. There you guys go. That is the Halloween in July book tag. I am going to tag anyone who is looking forward to Halloween and autumn and all of those fun activities as much as I am. So if you love Halloween, then consider yourself tagged. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!